Welcome everyone to Cecilia's YouTube channel, and today I have a very special guest from Armenia, and it's Razmik Sargsyan. Is that right, correct?
That's good enough. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and he's special because I know that he has been living in Sweden for some years, and then he came over deep insights about life that's so special for us to, if you can tell us more about that. So Razmik, welcome, and you're free to talk about your visit here in Sweden. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation. Yeah, so we're speaking about, both of us shared the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought as discovered by Sydney Banks, and most importantly, what they actually point to. So with not so much attachment to the language. And you're right, a lot of my and a lot of unfoldings for me in terms of personal development, in terms of understanding my own psychology, or not so much my own psychology, but just how, universally speaking, how the mind works, happened in Sweden. And we had a chance to speak a little bit about this before we started recording. So I moved to Sweden to do my master's, and then I stayed in Sweden and worked, and actually I ended up working with the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I worked with the Swedish Embassy here in Armenia. So Sweden, there's a beautiful quote by Dag Hammarskjöld, which was, "Vägen väljer dig och du ska tacka." The path chooses you, and you have to think. Like, you don't choose your path, the path chooses you. And somehow Sweden chose me, and just all the spaciousness that I found in Sweden was instrumental for me to have the insights that I needed.
Yeah. So you came to Lund and you were studied there, and something happened with you when you were living there.
Yeah, so at that point, I had been practicing a couple of things that were really helpful for me. One of them was transcendental meditation. I still practice that. And I had been researching psychology, I had been on a quest for just finding myself. And I had a very analytical kind of academic way of thinking about life, but I had a big ego too. So I always thought that I needed to go get somewhere to kind of become complete. Deep within me, I had that belief. I didn't perhaps acknowledge it. And at that age, like, it was a big thing for me. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go do my master's and get this knowledge, and then do that project. And so what happened is, I moved to Sweden and I had my honeymoon period. And then all of a sudden I felt kind of empty. I didn't feel satisfied to the degree that I thought I would. In other words, I had this concept about things that I needed to achieve, and I achieved them, but they didn't give me what I needed them, what I needed them for, which was the feeling that I was actually striving. And what happened in Lund, I got, well, I was traveling. It didn't exactly happen in Lund, but I was in Lund when it unfolded for me. I met this beautiful person who's now a dear friend, one of the first 3 principles coaches in Cyprus. And she introduced me to the 3 principles. And I remember I was just jogging in one of the streets of Lund, and I was listening to a tape by Dr. Aaron Turner, based in UK. And he was speaking about the 3 principles in the context of relationships, and how it's important to understand how the mind works on a very fundamental level. And he was just simply pointing out to things with metaphors, things about thought, things about feelings, how we experience the resonance of our own thoughts, and then we project it to people around us, and the kind of things that we speak about. I have a podcast called Brand New Thought, and we discuss these topics in detail with a lot of coaches. And I had a beginner's mind at that point, so it just instantly resonated with me, instantly. And I stopped. I laughed for about 30 to 40 minutes. It was kind of a ridiculous experience, unexplainable. And people were just like, "Vad skrattar han om?" I was like, what is happening? But what happened is I just realized that so many, if not all of the problems I thought I had was because I was using my mind against me. And I was doing it innocently because I didn't have a core understanding of how my experience of life is created, how everybody's experience of life is created. So that shifted my personal development journey from techniques and practices, from trying to manage stress to understanding. Because if you do have an understanding, even if you're in a really bad state of mind and your thinking is clogged and you don't think clearly, you're not present, the creativity doesn't come through you, but you're aware of it, you're not scared of it. So at least you're not taking the unhelpful information that your mind is feeding you and treating it as helpful information. That's what the mistake is. The problem isn't being in those states. And the other way around, when you know that you're in clarity, you are this deeper wisdom is coming through you, you almost get permission to allow it to unfold through you. So that would be a short summary of what happened in Lund. And but of course, that's
when I heard a lot of Lund, people study there. They're feeling a lot of inner pressure. They need to have drugs and alcohol to manage the studying. Did you see that when you were inside, that many people there have that kind of pressure on them, the stress?
Yeah, that's I think in a lot. Well, I've worked and studied in different universities, and it's there's this academic press for sure, because people are high achiever, or they think of themselves as high achievers. So what they're able to do is constantly project this idea that what they have is not enough. We all do it in different ways. Somebody might think, I don't have enough money. Somebody might think, I don't have enough power, relationships. But it's the mind has a way of justify itself, and sometimes in academic context, the stories that the mind might use may seem reasonable. So I've had a very joyful experience in Lund too. But yeah, generally speaking, there is that vibe in student cities, and at the same time, there is a lot of joy and playfulness. And for me, it was my first experience of Sweden and Swedish culture, and I noticed, because Armenia is we have a very extroverted culture. We speak a lot. It's so easy to just initiate a conversation, and Sweden was not like that, and it was unusual for me. It took me some time to get used to, and that spaciousness was instrumental because it allowed me a little bit more time to just dive deep inside me. But at the same time, when I wasn't feeling joyful, I thought, well, is it because of the culture? Is it because of I'm not getting the warmth kind of from the people? And just getting an insight about the three principles completely changed my relationship to Sweden, Swedish language, and Swedish culture, and just things kind of unfolded through that. And what I saw was that I'm not experiencing Sweden. I cannot experience Sweden. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I'm experiencing my own head, and it's always changing. My thoughts kind of come and go. And, one day, like the tube experience in Stockholm is a good example. Like I would take the tube, and one day when I'm in a good mood, it's like, oh, how good, everybody gives each other space. I can just listen to this and to that. And then another day, it's the same thing. But because I'm not in a good mood, I was like, oh my God, look, people don't even want to look into each other's eyes and all that. So just seeing that it was all me. It wasn't Sweden directly. I was creating an experience from the inside out, but because I didn't acknowledge that at the moment, I would project it. And that's what happens. Whenever we can't acknowledge that, we innocently project it. And we make up stories, and the mind is capable of making incredibly complicated and persuasive stories about why that is the case. So In terms of Lund, yeah, a lot of people have felt a lot of different things, and we could just easily project it to the academic environment, for example, or the culture or the weather. And that's the thing. I noticed that it was so random, and I could randomly choose any of those if I needed to. Like, if I need to get an external story to validate my sense of anxiety in that moment, I'll make up something, anything. And just the seeing that I was free from that, and the solution wasn't in figuring it out, finding the source of it, and having a surgical kind of intervention, transcending my way out of it, or reaching a state of no thoughts and all of that. Just seeing that I didn't need to do any of that, because I just see that I'm doing this, how I'm creating my experience, was, oh my God, so simple, but so powerful. And till this day, I keep on relearning this and seeing it deeper, and then forgetting it and seeing it deeper. And there's this simplicity in the three principles understanding that we both share, that is also very profound. And a lot of people may not notice that, but I think when you start appreciating that, you start gravitating to that simplicity. And yeah, I think being in Sweden was very helpful in that sense. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, it is. And the thing that you embrace yourself and can go deeper and deeper in the trust that there is this simplicity in all things, and you can just allow yourself to go with it, and let it move you forward in life with the trust. And that started here in Sweden, but I can see that I think it has embraced for you more and more, going deeper and deeper. And that's the same for me, that it started with the thing that I saw something deeper that was behind all the concepts and thoughts, and then I could try to go in that direction, and trust that there is something deeper in me that I can follow. And that's how I see that I can embrace myself more and more.
That's beautiful. And you're right, it has to do with trust, but trust not in a kind of a religious sense in terms of blind belief in something, but the trust comes from simply understanding and acknowledging. I mean, like, for example, I love using this metaphor, and there's water in this cup, and I keep on shaking it, and what I want is for that to calm down, come back to the balance. Well, the default state is when I don't do anything, it does come back to the balance. Water wants to come back to a quieter state. And by the way, that's the whole nature is based like that. So for me to get trust in this process, I just have to see it a couple of times that that's how it works. And because nobody has taught this, we have never, like, even in conversations about psychology, spirituality, personal development, just simply appreciating the spiritual facts isn't the most common thing to do. So, and because they're always around us and we're always using them, we can't stop using them. When we pause and want to kind of get a deeper appreciation for that, sometimes it takes time to get our heads around it, because we build a sense of identity with some thoughts that we pick up from parents and culture and all that. So sometimes we can't get it intellectually. We need to go beyond the form and just see it for what it is. But when we do that, the unfolding that comes from that, it kind of has a life of its own almost. So all we can do is just tap into a quiet feeling and trust that the wisdom that we're made of knows best how to unfold and unravel, and it does. It's maybe another way of speaking about this is getting out of the way.
Yeah, because it's clear the mind. It really clears the mind. I see that I had so many toxic thoughts in my head before, and when I'm not allowing those to believe in those all the time, it just, the silence clear it. It's like you get space to new thoughts, and then it's more easy to study.
Yes.
And I have a lot of thoughts around study and school, that I'm not good enough to do that. So I haven't thought about going to Lund and the university, because all my dark thoughts about that. But I can see now more and more when I have those more silent moments, that it clears and I can understand more about things. It opens up for more understanding.
Absolutely. And I love how you just described this. It is about new thought, isn't it? That's the reason I called my podcast Brand New Thought. And there, in one of our recent episodes with Christine Heath, who's she's with the Three Principles Global Community, she mentioned something that I think speaks to the heart of what you just pointed to, which is when we are in those states, and often we know by how we feel, right? There's this joy, or just simply, I'm okay. Or even if we don't have that, we're just okay with not being there, right? We're comfortable with being uncomfortable. So when we get to those states, the wisdom that we access, which is, and I'm not pointing to this in a religious way or anything, but that's the intelligence of all things. And the science has caught up with that too. So there's nothing controversial with that. And when we allow wisdom to work with us, wisdom accesses memory. So all the thoughts that we have in our head about the past, and we keep on kind of going back and forth, these are it's memory. And it's interesting how when wisdom enters us, we can even re-experience the past. Something, maybe you had a traumatic experience, maybe you had a joyful experience in the past. Let's speak about the traumatic experience. The way wisdom thinks about it, the way wisdom sees it, may not be the same as how you experienced it at the moment, especially if you felt pain. So wisdom, what Christine said was, wisdom can access memory, but memory cannot access wisdom. So that's why whenever we have limiting beliefs, thoughts keeps on justifying itself, and we cannot use thought to kind of transcend itself or go beyond it. It just doesn't work. If the solution was there, we would have figured it out by now. And therefore, wisdom brings a new thought, and with new thought comes a fresh new feeling. And not only do you see the world from a new perspective, but you literally perceive a new world. And the reason is that the only world you can ever perceive is the world that you think of.
And that's why they say, Sydney Banks said, everyone is doing the best they can in the state of consciousness you are in. And that's really, when I was in that bad state of mind, I thought I did my best. When I took this medicine or alcohol, I thought I did my thought, but I did what I thought was the best in that moment to get calm. Intellect, I knew that it wasn't good to drink or to eat those medicine. I knew it intellectually.
Intellectually, yeah.
Yeah, but the feeling, that the thoughts that I had said to me, do this, take this, and I wanted to calm myself.
Yes.
So I thought it was the best for me in that moment, and maybe I could do better in another moment, I thought. So I did the best in that moment.
That's such a beautiful insight and such an important subtlety to get our heads around, that we are always doing the best we can given the thoughts we have in the moment and how real they look to us. And I've had that same experience on so many examples, like, and even recently, like I was having a conversation with a potential client on nothing to do with the coaching, with the PR and digital marketing side, and we were just talking, and it was like a really nice conversation. And a couple of hours later, I was in a state of no thought, or what, I wasn't thinking about that, and I just remembered one question I got, and then all of a sudden this completely different solution came. I was like, oh my God, why didn't I think of it at the moment? I was like, well, this is the same thing. Wisdom can access memory, memory cannot access wisdom. And you are so right to point to the fact that there is actually, when you're doing the best you can, that's the path of least resistance, there is wisdom in that too. So like whether it's food, whether it's smoking or anything, I mean, people do it because of how they feel, and in their mind, the association with the sense of relief and what they do. So the freedom from, let's say, addiction or anything truly comes from seeing that same process of cleansing or going back to our default state can happen without it. But even the fact that we gravitate to it so that we get there, that's wisdom too.
But somehow I just found out, I had a deep insight that wasn't helpful. And now I got the trust, even if I get those feelings, which I always, it comes up all the time, those kinds of feelings, you feel not comfortable. But I know that I don't need to do anything about it in this moment, rather than just stay with it, sit with it, and a new thought and a new feeling will come. Yeah. And that's the trust, and also what we talked about before, the simplicity, because it is a simplicity to trust that life takes care of you. You don't need to bring something from the outside, swallow something from the outside to get these horrible feelings away. It doesn't work that way, and that's what I had the deep insight about.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What came to mind when you just spoke about this, about the trust part, is so there was an experiment. I don't know which university conducted it, but basically what they did is they had a monkey in a cage, and they put a banana out of the cage, but in a way that's out of reach for the monkey. So the monkey tries to reach out and he can't get it, and he keeps on reaching out until he exhausts himself. What they do during the experiment is they open one of the doors on the backside. So theoretically, the monkey has the choice to not reach out for the banana, turn around, see that the door is open, exit and get his banana. But in most of the cases, what happens is he exhausts himself, he falls asleep, he wakes up and sees that the door is open. So, okay, the possibility for the monkey to leave the cage exists at all points, really. And it's just what happens is when he's putting more effort and he doesn't succeed, the way he interprets it is that, well, now I have to put more effort. And then again, the wisdom what wisdom does is that you start feeling tired. It's there. That's the work of wisdom. When you're working on something and you don't get fresh insights or anything, you start feeling tired, so that it's an invitation to stop doing that in your mind. So where does the trust, where would the trust come from in that case? Well, if a couple of times, if the monkey has the same experience a couple of times, I can't believe how I'm theorizing about the monkey, but this is cool. If you just observe a couple of times that, well, let me take my hand off it, just take a 20-second break, see what comes up. And what you do by that is you follow the guidance of beautiful feelings. And this is very important. And you point to it, and Sydney Banks has been pointing to it, how important it really is, because the quality of our thoughts kind of changes all the time. And we're not going to be able to understand that quality by the content of our thoughts, because it's tricky. The content will always make up reasons why the thought you're having at the moment is justified. But the feeling you're having is giving you a feedback. So by following your bliss, as Joseph Campbell has put it, you gravitate to feelings, to better feel, to quieter feelings, to more beautiful feelings. And it's also the most practical thing to do, because then you make sure that you're accessing thoughts that have more wisdom, more creativity. They reflect more information that you have about the world or what you could do. And by doing that, you become all of a sudden so much more productive. So this is a very practical understanding too. I want to highlight that for the listeners.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I see it for myself. The feeling is everything, and I felt like I was 100 years before. 3 years ago, I felt like that all the time. I was lying on the sofa and didn't want to do anything. But if you take another way, open up for another thought, you get more energy, you get more light, you get more you see other things. You can't go in the same way. If that doesn't feel good, you can't move on in that direction. You need to step on the side or back. You need to change. You can't go in that way you are, because then it doesn't happen for you. The energy doesn't change. And when I saw that I had to take another way, it opened up for so much more, and I let the energy and the light come into me. So I know now when it doesn't feel, when I get so tired and it doesn't feel right, maybe I'm too much up in my head.
Yeah,
The silence doesn't say that we must lie in the sofa and rest, even if it feels like that. It's not that we point into, that we must lay down. It's the silence up in the head.
absolutely.
And you can be everywhere. You don't need to be on a beach or on a in the nature to have that silent. It's just wherever you are.
Yeah.
You're falling into that space, that and for me it helped to sit quiet and listen to someone that can point me to that state of where the feelings are.
Yes.
A nice feeling.
That's so true. What you mentioned is, here's what I think it is, Cecilia. We have collectively, we may not acknowledge this, but we have a belief that I'm going to say is a completely false belief, that we need to be stressed to be productive. Honest to God, we think that. Maybe we don't see it, but we think that. Because we think that there's a direct correlation with the amount of noise in our heads. Like if we think more, if we try to think harder, then we're going to do more. And therefore, as you're saying, this completely unwarranted belief that if I allow myself to get into that state, then I'm not going to do anything, then I'm not going to be successful and productive. If you speak with high achievers, you realize that it's completely the other way around. You speak with athletes, and when they're in the zone, they speak about how all of a sudden thoughts stopped and they could see the ball moving so much slower and they had more mental bandwidth. In academy, the best academic insights come when you're not thinking about it at all. The Archimedes law, like it was just, or you have a shower and something comes, you walk with the dog, there is just more spaciousness. So the correlation between productivity and internal chit chat, it's not a direct correlation, it's the other way around. And even more than that, in these deeper states of silence that you describe, things occur to us that we wouldn't be able to think ourselves by going to our computers and kind of scanning that database. It's a completely new quality of thoughts, and it comes with a sense of inspiration. It comes with a sense of freshness. Like the last year, I was a teaching assistant. I was doing another master's degree, and it was a lot of time pressure, right? What helped me so much was seeing that I'm not even experiencing the amount of work that I have to do. It's a reasonable thing to think, but I'm not experiencing that. I'm still experiencing my state of mind. When I'm inspired, when I'm quiet, even if I have so much to do, I'm just present. I'm doing the next thing after the next thing. And before I think, I'm completely done with it. In for if you think about like qualities of state of mind, this is 100 thoughts per second, this is 0 thoughts per second. Well, when I'm here, even when I don't have anything to do, the world looks like it's such a burden, because I'm feeling that hard feeling. I'm creating it. So just catching that a little bit and recognizing how independent your state of mind can be from what's in front of you is the thing that is going to allow you to be productive, be efficient. So you're right. There's no conflict between spirituality, the way you speak about, the way we speak about, and let's say success and productivity. And that you asked me what happened in Sweden. That's exactly what happened. I realized that success wasn't going to make me happy. Happiness that I already have, and that's also important, just realizing that is going to make me so much more successful. Because you can, the external motivation and this like hard, macho energy, like, yeah, let's get it. I mean, that's cool too. I love that too, but it only lasts for a very limited amount of time. What is sustainable is what comes from love, what you naturally feel like, oh, this would be amazing. Like, the way you run your YouTube channel, the way you guide these conversations, it feels so effortless. So you keep on doing it. And yeah.
And even if I know this, have more insights, my moods go up and down, and that's just how it is. It's just normal. It's just human to have that. But it's so much easier when you know how you can meet other souls, other people, and I can see it also when I meet. I work with older care, and they have Alzheimer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you must meet them on another place, because they can't use their brain. They use their wisdom, and you have to meet them from that space. And when you do that, it brings up so much more. They get so much more calm, and they can laugh and they can talk, and it's a difference to meet them on that space, instead of up in the head, in the intellect, because you can't meet them there. And that's also with the children. It's the same.
We rely too much on our intellects, and that's where all the problems come from. And like what I had, my intellect had created a sense of self-importance that was, see, I don't know what that quote was, but like, it's interesting how all the problems we think we have to do with the self, and it doesn't even exist. And that it's, once we go beyond intellect and truly see how wisdom is able to give us fresh thought. So wisdom is both personal and impersonal. Impersonal in a way that it's omnipresent. It's our nature. It's our birthright to recognize that we are that. But also it's very personal, because like Cecilia is having insights about how wisdom wants to unfold in an elderly care environment, in the context of what's happening in Sweden and this and that, because it's the source of life itself. It's able to nurture almost your personal mind, and then the solution comes through. And I think once we just observe how much better life feels with this, it's not even an approach, it's just how things work anyways. And I'll tell you something else. I think at some point in my journey, because I was like, I could see how my intellect was creating all the problems for me, maybe like somehow internally I had demonized, is not the right word, but I went too far. I didn't realize that intellect is actually it comes from wisdom too. It's just we overly rely on it. It's like a tool. If I have this phone, it is supposed to do this and that. If I start hitting nails with it, well, at some point I'm gonna have a problem. So understanding, which comes from wisdom, make sure that intellect is used as a vehicle that it's supposed to.
Yeah, we need our intellect, but it's a lot of problems with it, because it's you get stuck in your thoughts about being good enough. And I think there is a lot of that kinds of thoughts that stress people in the university.
Yeah, that's right, because there is this intellectual, almost like momentum, which you use for problem solving and research and analysis.
And
It can
people are stuck up in that you must be something, because
yeah.
if you are not something, if you're not educated, you are nothing.
Yeah,
That's why we point to go behind all that you need to be, and see that you are already. The education is just something to have something to do in life, but it's not who you are. And that's, you have to see that for yourself. And when you not see it, you get caught up in your head and stressed about it. And we all do that. We all have those feelings and thoughts, even if we know. But I feel it's better for me now when I know this, so I can see the sign in me when I feel the horrible feelings. Okay, now it's the time to take a break from this thoughts, and see beyond.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's love and understanding, honestly. And I like, once I got this, and then at some point I used my intellect to conceptualize it and try to figure it out better so that I could milk it more and get out of it. It's very simple. And you're right. I like that you speak about the university context too, because I remember one of the early questions I asked, I think I asked Michael Neal about this, which was, and it was something like, well, let's say we have an addiction in terms of a drug that we use or something that we indulge in, hoping that it's gonna make us complete or anything like that. Because societally, the culture has already demonized those things. It's like somewhat as like, oh, no, it might be, I don't want to say easier, but yeah, maybe easier to just see like, oh, maybe this is, I have to take another path. And that's why I was pointing to the fact that thoughts have a way of justifying themselves. So if you're in an academic environment, well, you're doing something that's actually great. It's encouraged by your family, by the society. You're doing something great. But again, going back to the feeling, if we are doing it from the perspective of well, I'm not enough and I need more knowledge to become enough, then that's an even better trap. You just don't see it. It's like so the intellect works like a lawyer. You go to a courthouse, it just argues for whatever you give it. And that's why sometimes for people that have been involved in heavily intellectual kind of exercises or work, it can be almost harder to let go of that because you have a great story. Well, I'm doing this for the greater good, and yeah. But how do you feel?
Yeah.
And
So the simplicity in life is to see for yourself in a calm place when you are in a good state of mind that it is a game of life. It is a game, and we choose. We can be whatever we want in this game. We can work with whatever we like to, but we are not that. It's just a work or a education. It's not. We are
that's right.
something much more bigger, stronger. We are more than just the personality, and I think it's very important to see that for yourself, because if something of the if you educate yourself to something and you can't work with that, who are you then?
Yeah.
You must see that you are worth something, even if you're not working with that.
Yeah.
Because if you get a job in that you have been educated you for, and you must quit the job, who are you?
Yeah. So the way I think about, so this is, I think having insights about how the mind works, that's the deepest form of knowledge you could acquire. And that's knowledge too. In a way, well, all this division, oh, this is intellect, this is wisdom. I think I often refer to the so-called physics approach, which is boil things down to the most fundamental things that you can imagine, fundamental principles that you can imagine, and then reason up from there. That's how I do it in like in my PR side of my work too. Like I'm very curious about the most fundamental principles that are just as common as possible. Like gravity is just always true, right? And in all disciplines we have these principles. So in terms of knowledge, we can go to very specific, or we can go general and appreciate this principles. And if you go beyond and beyond and then beyond, you at some point you have to reach a level, well, okay, but how does my experience of it work? So this is knowledge too, and this is education. And I hope that maybe in 20-30 years we will have this incorporated in our education, or I don't know, somehow it's just have it be passed to us, because the earlier we appreciate these simple things, then we're not confused by how we feel. And you were right to mention that it's inevitable that these negative feelings will come up. And you know what happens to people, people like you and people like me who have been in these journeys and have had insights? We may innocently believe that wisdom or spiritual maturity then means that we are always in this high state and, you know, free from stress and all that. That's so not true. It's not. Then that means we have grown attached to those like high feelings. Wisdom and maturity is about being okay with all of this, as you mentioned, just embracing that it's going to happen. So what I'm interested in is how people act when they have these low moods, how big of a deal it is for them, how many layers of additional thought they generate, not whether they have it or not. It's so human. I wouldn't give up my capacity to have negative feelings. And if I didn't have that capacity, how else would I even recognize that I am having a better feeling? Because it's all felt. We only feel the difference of vibrations, kind of, so to say. So in the three principles, we say that in the three principles community, it's often said that we live in the feeling of our thinking, right? And maybe a better way to talk about it is that what we feel is the difference in terms of the feeling versus with the thought that we're having in the moment, and how wisdom may think about it. So we feel the difference of that resonance. And that change is constant. It has to be there, and I think life would be boring without it. It's just because we misunderstand it. When in our worst states as humans, we act from those worst states when our mind is clogged, and that's why we have wars and atrocities and all of that. It all at some point comes from misunderstanding. And for me, I live in a region where we have some of the worst dictators in the world, and so many innocent people suffer from all this momentum that has been generated from unconscious thought and, you know, oil money and all that. And at the same time, I kind of have to embrace that this is a consequence of bad thought not recognized. Somebody is having a very bad thought, but isn't aware that they're doing it. Their thoughts, their feelings are screaming at them, but they take that noise as if they have more right to act on it. So we again come back to the thing that you so beautifully pointed to in terms of, no, it's the other way around. Like, what if we just went with the silent, beautiful feelings instead? Just that, nothing more. We all do it for one day, see what the world turns to. I guarantee it won't be the same.
And if you don't do anything, if you don't take that wine or drugs, or you have to stay with it. You have to feel it, and it doesn't feel comfortable, but you can trust that it will be moving on. And so I can say that I have felt many horrible feelings after I stopped to do something, but I just know that it will move. I will feel it now, but it will be going away. And after that, I feel stronger. And this recording, I felt a little scary. I heard that Razmik had been at TED speaking, and I felt, oh my God, can I do this? But I know that was a feeling. It was a thought coming that just makes sounds in my head, and I don't need to listen to that. I can just be with it and let it. It feels not comfortable in the body. It doesn't, but it will be moving on. And I'm doing this now. So if we
See,
take,
this
if
this
we
is
do
why
that
it's an
all the
illusion.
time, huh?
This is why it's an illusion. You're the most
Yeah.
wonderful host, creating a loving environment, very curious, but any thought you have, you're going to be able to feel it. And I like, honestly, sometimes I think that if there was a microphone in my head and people would just hear the ridiculous thoughts in my head, they would go like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's allowed to speak about these things." But so it's inevitable. It happens. And here's something very important that you pointed to, that at some point it's going to go away. So this has to do, okay, so if we embrace the fact that we create an experience of life through thought, then it might be a useful thing to kind of see what we know about thought to be true. And you commented on one of them, which is that thoughts don't have a momentum. So if I give you my phone number and you want to remember it, you need to keep on repeating it. When your attention goes away from it, it's gone. This is so simple, but we don't embrace that. We don't acknowledge that thoughts, and I mean thought on a very formless level. This can be kind of misunderstood easily. When I say it doesn't have a momentum of its own, I mean that it's our interference with it and trying to figure it out with extra layers of thought. Often it's about what it means about us, or I have had this spiritual practice, I shouldn't feel this way, or let me meditate my way out of it. All of that, that energizes it. When that's removed, again, with this, just like with this example, it doesn't have a momentum, it quiets down. When we appreciate that, then the process of taking our hands off it is so much easier. And another fact about thought is that, yes, it doesn't have a momentum of its own. It does have a perceived sense of momentum, but not a sovereign, independent momentum. So even if it doesn't have it, we are going to feel a thought for as long as we keep our attention on it. That's it. We have that freedom, and that's the free will. And we misuse it because of our misunderstanding about how life works, how mind works. And we have this freedom, and there's wisdom in that too. It might feel weird, but we are made. Today is Armenian Christmas, and I'm not particularly religious, but I appreciate metaphors in all religions, and that's, in Christianity, the pointer that we're made in the image of God, we're made in the image of a creator. Well, thought is what we use to create an experience of life. And that power to think anything includes the power to think that we are not made in the image of love. And we can give ourselves the shitty feelings. I don't know how it's designed, maybe so that when that goes off, we feel that relief.
And we
But we
can
have
just
that
look
power.
at the small children, because they go through all these feelings and they don't notice it. They don't stay with it for so long time. They just go with it. And I can also see that with a lot of elder people. They kind of know with the wisdom that, oh, this is part of life. I have seen it all my life. I know this will pass too, and they don't get so hang up with it. They just they know by life that. So I can feel when you come home to a lot of elder people, they are more calm and they are more trusting life, because they have seen for themselves that life have shown them that things will work out even if I don't I don't know what to say, but
anything. See, that it's interesting that you took a pause there. Even if I don't, whatever. Honestly,
whatever
Things
whatever,
work.
life will continue with or without me. It's just life is.
We think that things work out because of what we did or said. Sometimes things work out in spite of that. So we can almost raise the likelihood of things are working out by removing our unnecessary interference. I'm not speaking about inspired action. And I love what you said about children and elderly. And again, they are in Christianity, there's the metaphor, until you become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And the elderly, the grandmother energy, for example, in Native American traditions, like ayahuasca, for the ayahuasca spirit is described as a grandmother energy. So it's interesting to see all these pointers ever. And it's so interesting. The truth is everywhere. You can't run away from it. Once you just get a little bit of a glimpse, it keeps on playing with you.
Yeah, and it's the nice feeling you are searching for, and when you feel that, just be with it.
Yeah.
I think this is don't you think this is the a good space to just stay here now? And I think this conversation has been very very lovely.
I couldn't agree more. You're a wonderful host. Thank you for inviting me. And you're right. I keep on relearning this. Like I started sharing this much more proactively. One thing I always embraced is that I will always be a student of this. And
Me
just the
too.
thing that you pointed to about the feeling, it took me a long time to realize that when I have a beautiful feeling, that's the thing that I've been looking for all along. So I can just sit with it and let it soak, instead of trying to milk it and use it for problem solving and this and that. So it's all in the feeling, and we co-create it. So thank you for inviting me, and it felt great to speak with you and dive into this issue.
Thank you very much, Razmik. It was beautiful to speak. You have you here, and you can say something in Swedish before we stop.
Ja, vi har glömt att prata lite svenska, för att jag har inte övat ganska länge, men jag älskar allt som har med Sverige att göra. Jag har jobbat med så många svenskar och kände en stor respekt för er alla.
Tack så mycket, Razmik. Det var jättehärligt att ha dig här. Tusen tack.
Ha det så bra.
Samma. Hej då. Bye.